Hey, this is Mickey from Laravel Academy, and today we're going to be taking a look at basic routes in Laravel. To get started, I've installed a default project for Laravel 5. So let's move on to what a route actually is. To keep things simple, a route is defined in Laravel and tells the framework what to do. For instance, this default page in front of us is a route defined in Laravel, and it is telling Laravel to display the Laravel 5 text. If we were to change our URL to /foo, you can see we have a not found exception because this route is not defined in our routes.php. So let's dive a little deeper and let's load up Sublime Text and have a look. All of Laravel's routes are found in app, http, and then routes.php. When you load this file, you can see we have the default route, so the welcome screen, already built into the application. All it is doing is returning a view, and this is covered earlier in the series, so we'll skip it right now. Now to get started, let's copy this default route and paste it below, and let's fix the error that we currently have. So we'll say if we're going to go to foo, we'll return a string, I am the foo. Remember that this is a GET request, so we can access this easily in our browser. So if we just refresh, we can see I am the foo, so this route is now working properly. Now, routes can also accept parameters. So let's switch back to Sublime and see how that can be done. So currently we just have /foo. Let's add a parameter and we'll encapsulate this name variable in our curly braces. So let's return I am the foo with the name of, and let's just pass the name back. Now the one thing to remember is we also need to put it in the function here. So this name variable here will be passed into our function, and it is also name, and finally it will be returned into our string. Now if we refresh this original route, you'll see that we have a not found exception. That's because Laravel is looking for a name. In this case, I'll just give it my name of Mickey. So we can see I am the foo with the name of Mickey. So one of the things that we want to do is fix this issue here, and we can do this with an optional parameter. So all we need to do is provide a question mark in our route, and then we have to assign a default value for our function. So we'll just make name null. Next, we'll do a quick check to see if the name is not null. So if we have a name, let's just display it. Otherwise, let's just write unknown. So now if we go to the browser and we give this a refresh, because we didn't pass in a parameter, we can see we have unknown. And when we pass in our name, again we have with name of whatever we've passed in. Using Laravel, we can use regular expressions to check on these variables that we are passing in through our route. To do this, all we need to do is add a where statement. So at the end of this function, we're going to be checking name, so we'll say where name, and this is our regular expression. So in this case, let's just say that the name has to be any characters in lowercase a to z, any characters in uppercase a to z, and then one or more. And I'll just fix my z here. So if we give this a save, and let's load it up in Chrome, you can see that the original route will still work, as well as if we don't pass a parameter in. However, if we pass a parameter such as Mickey with the number 3, we will get a route not found. And that's because our regular expression for the number 3 is failing. So in this case, let's just make sure that they have A to Z and the numbers 0 through 9. And that will make that route work. We give it a refresh, and there you go. So now that we've checked out a basic route and route with parameters and optional parameters, what we're going to do is just create another basic route with a view here that we're going to use for named routes. So I'm going to fast forward through here, and all this route's going to do is load up a blade file called test view, and I've already made this file, and you can see it's just a bunch of links here to the view that the route that we've already created. So let's go ahead and let's go to listing. You can see that we have foo, we also have with name, and we have a one that's not going to be matched here. So this one will throw an exception. So far everything's pretty good. Now imagine a client comes along and says, you know what, I actually don't like the URL foo. I want to change it to something, say welcome. Well, our first instinct will be, okay, well, let's go to the routes and let's start changing the word foo to welcome. And now that you have that done, you would need to change the URLs in your blade file. So you'd switch back over to Sublime, load up our test view here, and you'd have to change all these URLs. Now, you can see this is taking quite a bit of time, and this is just a small application. Could you imagine doing this on a much larger scale? Luckily, there are named routes in Laravel. Let's head on over to our routes.php and add a name to our welcome route. Once again, Laravel offers many different approaches to this, but we will start off with supplying this route a second parameter of an array instead of just function. So let's start the array here, and we want to pass a keyword, and that word is as, and this will be the name of the route. So let's just name this foo. And then now we have to supply the function call here, and let's just end our array right before the where. Now switching over to our blade template, instead of supplying the URL of /foo, we want to supply a route of foo. Now this is going to be the name which we assigned our route in here, and in our case it is foo. So let's go ahead and let's copy this. So in this instance we're going to supply the same route, but we're just going to pass a variable of Mickey, and we can do the exact same thing down here. We'll just pass the @LaraAcademy. And that's it. So let's give this a save and let's try this out. So when we give these links a test, you can see that the URLs are correct. So let's check our mismatch, and you can see it's welcome @LaraAcademy. And let's do our name, and finally just the regular. So you can see that all these URLs have been changed. So let's pretend the client comes back in and says, you know what, I don't really like the word welcome. Let's change it to something else. Let's change it to bar. Well, all we have to do is change the URL. We can leave the names the same. And when we come back to Laravel, if we refresh, everything has been changed automatically for us. That is the benefits of using a named route. Now, like I said before, Laravel gives us multiple ways of doing this. So let's just bring this route back to what we had. And the easiest thing that we can do to add a name onto this route is just chain the function name and give a name. And that's it for named routes. Now, let's carry forward and let's pretend that we had a bunch of routes set up here. So we have an index, we have a create, and let's also throw in a post as well. Now, if you take a look at this application, even though it's very small, you can imagine that we can have a lot of routes inside our Laravel application, and things can get pretty messy. Luckily, Laravel has a route group function that allows us to group all our routes together. So let's say that these routes were specifically for a store. So within our group, we can give it a prefix of store, and then let's just move all of these existing routes underneath this new group. So we'll just take everything we have here, we'll cut it out, paste it in. So what's going to happen is when we try to access this, it's going to be store or store/create or be store/insert. So to prove this, let's head on over to Chrome and let's change this to store. We'll hit the index, and let's do one more. We'll do store/create, and we have I'm the create. So everything's good except we just learned about named routes, and you can see that this route doesn't have a name attached to it. So let's go ahead and let's add a name, and normally you would have something like store.index, which means that inside our blade file, when we call the route, we can just call store.index. Let's just change the name here, and let's give this a try in Chrome. So if we come back, give it a refresh, you can see at the bottom we have store. Let's go ahead and click it, and you can see that the URL is correct. So you would probably come back to your routes and you would add these names onto the create, so we could have store.create, as well as we could have store.insert. However, you can see this kind of becomes very slow, and it can take quite a while to put all those names in there. Luckily, within the group, we can also provide an as keyword. So let's go ahead and make a new variable for as, and let's pass in store dot. So what this will do is it will overtake all our names and prefix it with store dot. So our index file will be store.index, Our create will be store.create, and finally the insert will be store.insert. So you can see this is hopefully saving a little bit of time when creating named routes. To give this a test, let's change this to store.create. We'll give this a refresh, and when we click on it, you can see it has the correct URL. Now, Laravel offers a bunch of different routes, such as get, post, put, patch, delete, and options. If you're just starting off, you should be okay with just the get and post, and you can leave off the other ones until later on. Finally, let's take a look at a route where we need the user ID and the name of the user that we're going to edit. So we need two parameters in here. So let's just return a string of the ID and the name that gets passed in. And we also need to make sure that they're in the function here so we can use them. So let's give this route a name, that's just test route, and we'll change our blade file so that we also have access to this test route. And now, if we want to pass in multiple parameters, there's a couple different ways that we can do this. We can pass in an array of just the values. Now if we switch over to Chrome, we click our test route, you can see the ID is 9 and the name is John Smith. Now the other way that we can do this is we can pass in an array of key value pairs. So we can say the name is Mickey and the ID is 3. Take note of the parameters or their positions here. If we go back over, we test this route, you see that the ID is correct and the name is correct. That is because we passed the key value pairs, so Laravel knows to match up the ID as well as the name. So hopefully that wasn't too long, but I wanted to give you a quick overview of Laravel routes to help you get you started in your own projects. Thanks.